Happy Sunday, folks. We're just a gnat's ass away from 5,000 subscribers. And oh, by the way, if you ever thought you were going to get rich doing YouTube, that's for 45,000 views. Boy, I'm killing it. Anyway, we got a 194 on the bench. And saw came to me that said it runs like crap. Let's take it outside and see what's up. This is a cold start. So hit the purge bulb a few times, throttle advance, chokes on. I got more questions before we do this. All right, so here's what I did, just to make sure nobody's been monkeying around with his carburetor. So if I can get this to prop up just right here, just bear with me for a sec. Stay. All right, we'll do it backwards. All right, so here we go. These should be about 1 turn and 1 turn from seated. So I've got this at 1 1/4 now. And then what you'll want to do is make sure that, so here is your idle speed. All right. So you should be about 1/4 to 1/3 of the way out, and it's making contact. So there's nothing hanging up with the throttle shaft. All right. Let's go back out there and fire this up, because I don't want to try and tune around a problem. I initially went in there and started backing out the idle screw to get slow down, and then I fattened it up about 1 turn or 2. Basically, if you have an issue with the carb or an issue with it idling or running or something like that, 1/4 turn one way to the other is a huge swing. You shouldn't have to move it more than that for seasonal weather changes or whatever. Otherwise, you move past 1/4 turn one way or the other on the factory carb, then you're probably trying to tune around a problem. So let's take it back outside. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be boogered up. All right, let's try that again. Yeah, he's right. Sounds like shit. Okay, this is one of those test before you buy moments. If you don't own a Mighty Vac, I think these kits they used to be like $100. I think they're closer to 150. But you know, you get, all these old fancy fittings. I've actually got some more in there, a couple of hoses. And make sure you get the one that does pressure and vacuum, not just pressure. Don't cheap out, because vacuum is going to be handy. You want to know both ways. I've actually had a saw that would pass a pressure test, but fail a vacuum test. Also, while this is hooked up, rotate, stress test your vacuum test. No playing the crankshaft. Still holding vacuum, hasn't budged. The next thing we'll take a look at, and this will come in handy, is pressurizing the fuel line. Make sure that there's no leaks, tears, pinch place, something. Why it would be starving for gas. Because it certainly seemed like an air leak, but we got to dig a little deeper before we replace the carb. I think these carbs are like 70 or 80 bucks, which seems really outrageous. And you can, as far as fancy testing blocks, You know, I've bought this stuff at Lowe's. I've talked about it a couple of times. These come in like 6x6 tiles, and it's just rubber. Do your little arts and crafts. I've got something here. The intake, or excuse me, the pulse line is on the bottom of the carburetor. So, well, actually, this would be the top of the carburetor. So I took off this side and was able to arts and crafts my way. So there it is. Just a little trim to fit so I could get that in there. And then the exhaust is blocked off with another tapered piece like this. And these things last. I mean, I haven't bought any of those tile squares. I think Lowe's, I bought them at Lowe's in the plumbing section. Whether they still carry those or not, I have no idea what they're used for. But I know of one really good use. Let's dig a little deeper. All right, here we go. I've got the fuel filter off. Hemostat's pinching the fuel line. I've got my Mighty Vac hook up to your fuel line that comes from the tank. So there's how your carb orients. This is the incoming fuel that gets sucked through this. So actually, yeah. So when you push this, it's purging fuel out of the carburetor. And then when you let go of the primer bulb, it is pulling fuel into that main pickup. So it's just circulating the fuel through the carburetor every time you push, pull, push, pull. Let's pressurize this and make sure we don't have any pinholes somewhere. Whoops, vacuum's the wrong way to go. Let's go. Let's put a little bit of pressure on it. And it'd be obvious. If there was a pinhole in the fuel line, that needle would either not build pressure or it would fall off pretty fast. All right, so we've got that. So there's just a couple of checks before you just say, throw a carb at it. You know, because this is like half the cost of this piece of testing equipment. You know, if these are 60 or 70 bucks, I want to say these are up to, they're probably 150 bucks with inflation and everything else, but they used to be about 110, $115. Regardless, it pays for itself. It's like an electrician not having a meter in his hand. You know, all the guesswork, you can throw parts at it, but you've got to definitively test to make sure why you have a lean situation. And again, if it's running bad, just stop, put it up, take it to the shop or go at home and do your own testing. Because the longer you run it while it's being finicky, the more expensive the repair is going to be. You know, the piston still looks great. I inspected that right away. I came in here and looked at the fuel. We got good color in there. I shook it up. The fuel's still crystal clear. Doesn't want to focus on me. But there's no cloudiness that would, you know, indicate water in the carb or water in the fuel. When I did take this pump cover off, the fuel that was in the carburetor was nice and clear, you know, with no cloudiness. So now I know we need a carb. And these are, you know, anytime you have a primer or purge bulb on one of these, you've got to keep this circuit a one-way circuit. So if that check valve fails, open, closed, it restricts fuel or overloads the fuel. Like you can't tune out if the check valve in here, which is unserviceable. All right, enough wordy stuff. I really thought in the beginning, just with a quick assessment, you know, when I pulled on this top cover and flexed it, that it was, where'd it go? The intake boot. And I took it off and put a new one on and didn't check anything else. So, you know, this is a shame on me moment. I'm not going to charge him for his new intake boot, but I'll keep this one that's in good shape for an emergency down the road. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. There's no cracks, there's no splits. But I have seen this multiple times where the saw's gotten pinched and they've pulled, and this is part of the system that holds the top handle to the saw. So if you yank on it hard enough, yes, you can tear this or tear it here. I've actually seen it where the boot's still been fine, but this lip right here is what holds it in place in the carb box, and it's actually been pulled through so the carb is not making contact with the intake boot. All right, enough chatter. Anyway, thanks for watching, y'all.